Next up is the Others menu, and in this menu we're going to set up some of the basic foundations and fundamentals of the camcorder. This isn't a menu that you're going to get into very often, but in some ways it should have been the first menu that we started out with, because this is where we're going to set up our date and our time and some of the other things that are relevant to the camcorder itself. So let's drop down to the Others menu. And the first option that we come up with is a Sine Button, and this is kind of my favorite menu setting because this lets me customize the camcorder to work the way that I want it to work. Now the camcorder has got 7 buttons. We've got 3 along the top, 3 moving downwards on the side of the camcorder, and then we have a 7th button that's over here on the right hand side of the camcorder. And that 7th button is labeled Expanded Focus, just like these up here are labeled for Zebra and for Index Preview and so forth. That doesn't mean these buttons have to work in that fashion. So let's hit the Assign Buttons. And we can see here how I've got my buttons already assigned. They're set up for peaking, spotlight, hypergain, zebra, auto exposure, shift, my visual index, and expanded focus. Now, you can set these up to be anything you want. So let's say that we don't need the spotlight mode. So let's move down to button number 2, click on spotlight. And we can choose from a number of things: backlight, spotlight, steady shot, focus macro, digital extender, the fader, color bars, zebra. There's our peaking again, our markers, record lamp, and this allows us to turn on and off our record lamps from the front or from the back. Okay, next, visual index that's already assigned. Then we have the modes button. Now the modes button can already be accessed on the side of the camcorder or in the display panel on the top of the camcorder. So we've got a couple of different ways to get to that button. Just keep that in mind. So that gets us through what the buttons will do, and we can also assign the buttons to do absolutely nothing if that's the way you'd rather work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that button selected, but I'm going to set that particular button up for my backlight again, just like I had it before. Great. Now we've got all of our buttons assigned. Let's go back up to OK. And our button selections are saved. Next up is our clock set. Okay, now currently our clock is already set for the date and time. And we can set it up for the different time zones as we slide through it right here. There we go. And we can turn off our time set in the display setup. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that to off. Great. And it's already got our date set up, so there's nothing more that we need to do. We'll just slide through all of those sections, and it takes us right back to where we need to be. Next, we can set up our camcorder for Greenwich Mean Time minus whatever our time zone is. So I'm already set up to Greenwich Mean Time -7. Okay, our DST setup, Daylight Savings Time. So we're going to turn that to on. That sets us up for the summertime. Here we can choose the language that our camera is going to operate in. So we've got English or French. Our date record, and currently I've got that set to off. Now, date record is going to superimpose the time and date over top of the recorded image. So if you're doing any type of forensic work, or maybe you're doing court reporting, you're going to need to have this feature on, but otherwise leave it off. Keep in mind that the date and time stamps go onto the flash card when you record. So you already have date and time on the file because it's a file-based camcorder. However, again, you might need to be able to superimpose that data code onto the recording itself so that when you turn it over to whoever your client is, you've got that date time embedded on there. So I'm going to leave this set up to the off position because it's not something that we need. Click back through there. Beep. Okay, now this is default set to off. This is something that really came over from, I think, some of the consumer background of the software found in this camcorder. I find these beeps really annoying, but maybe they help you. What that does is whenever we change something or we go into different modes in the camcorder will beep and give us an audible indicator that something has been changed up. I find it really annoying, but your mileage may vary. We're going to leave that set to off. Okay, and our record light for the front and record light for the back. Here we can turn these on and off permanently. If you remember in the assign button modes, we could turn on and off the record lamps by assigning a button to it. But if we want to turn on and off the tally light in the front and just leave it off without a button being wasted or used for that particular function, here's where we can turn that on or off. Next up is our remote control. And the NXCAM comes with a remote control. This can be used to control a number of the different functions, including getting into all of the menu functionality or getting into the start, stop, record, zoom, etc. All can be done from the remote control. So it makes it so that we can do this via IR. So it's an infrared remote system that allows us to control the camcorder. Just be aware there are some angles where this remote control may not work too well because it's not seeing the receiver on the front end of the camcorder. Okay, next up, operation time. This is just a display, and this lets us know how long the camcorder has been turned on in terms of total number of hours. This is something that's great to look at if you're looking at buying a used camcorder, or if you're selling a camcorder and you want to be able to tell potential buyers how long the camcorder has been on. And then finally, calibration. Now what this does is it allows us to restore the LCD calibration of the touch panel. Sometimes the touch screen might lose its information, in other words, it's mapping. So as you've used the camcorder, maybe the mapping where you touch things on the touch screen have changed. By going into calibration mode, what it does is it sets up this LCD panel into a calibration mode, and you'll have a series of places it asks you to touch so that it recalibrates itself to your particular touch, and it becomes familiar again with who you are. It may have been that you bought a used camcorder, or maybe somebody else has run this calibration mode so that it sets it up just for them. This is how you get it back to working the way you want it to, just for you. And that gets us through all of the different functions inside of the Others menu. Next, we're going to dive into picture profile modes and some of the things that we can do with the picture profiles. We spent a lot of time up to this point customizing the camcorder so that it works the way that you want it to work at a very basic level. In this next segment, we're going to go into picture profiles and set up the camcorder so that it works the way you want it to work, but so that it also has some personality and a look that works the way that you want it to look. So we're going to start by pressing the picture profile button, which is the second button from the rear on the right hand side of the camcorder. Now currently I've got XV Color enabled. Remember when we were back in the first setup menu for the camera setup, we enabled XV Color. So when we hit picture profiles, it's going to come up and tell us that it can't go into that mode. Watch. Okay, you can see here that it's telling us that it cannot go into picture profile mode because the XV Color has been enabled. Let's call that up one more time. Okay, picture profile cannot be executed while XV Color is in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our menus. So let's scroll down to XV Color. There we go, and let's disable XV Color. Choose it to off. Great, get back out of our menus. Now we'll get into our picture profile modes. And we can see that picture profiles now open up. So let's scroll down to our first picture profile here and hit enable, go to setting, and this allows us to get in and start adjusting the camcorder. So let's open up our background so that we'll be able to scroll back and forth between some of the different picture profile settings. First of all, we can set up the black level, and we've got a couple of different options here. We can swing that black level up if we'd like to, or swing it down to create some different looks. Now you'll notice that when we do, it allows us to see what's happening in our picture behind itself. You can see the black level shifting there. And so we can really take that down. We've also got control over the reds, the greens, and the blues. Now, one thing I'd like to mention here about picture profiles, it's really difficult to work with picture profiles or set up picture profiles unless you're dealing with an external monitor. So it's a good idea to have a good, well-calibrated or properly calibrated external monitor connected either to the RGB or to the HDMI output of your camcorder. Of course, if you've got an SDI monitor that's capable of receiving the signal, that's another great way to go. But I like working with either the RGB or the HDMI cable format so that we can see exactly what's happening in the camera itself. So remember that as you're setting up these picture profiles, then you'll have a good idea of what's going on inside the camcorder. All right, let's continue. Okay, so we've got this set up, and we're going to drop the level of those reds just a little bit. We can kind of see that swinging off in the background. See, if you watch the reds in the background there, you can see them swing in either direction. We're going to take this to just some extremes so that you can get some better ideas of what's going on. Okay, we're through the blacks. After black levels, we get into the gamma modes, and this is where we can start to set up the camcorder to look the way that we want it to look. So let's dial down to our gamma modes. In gamma modes, you'll see that it by default comes up in a standard position, and you can see how the picture's moved out of the way there so that we've got a little bit of view of what's going on. So next we'll choose Cinematone 1, You can see how that really flattens out there. Cinematone 2. Then we have an ITU 709, and this is just simply the HD color space in the ITU 709. Next up is a G5 gamma. Then moving down to the PD gamma. This is the PD gamma allows us to have a gamma curve that's similar to the PD series of cameras. You might recall those from the past. And then next we have an XV color, and this really recreates the curve, or rather the gamma, of the XV color space that we turned off earlier. So we can have XV assigned to a picture profile even though we've turned it off in the overall camera settings. So for this particular look, we're going to leave it set up to Cinematone 1. Next, we're going to come down to our black gamma. Now this allows us to set the black gamma in terms of its range. We can set this up into the middle range, into low range, and high range. And you can see in some of the dark colors they're changing just a bit. I'm going to leave this set up to middle. Then next we can go down and we can adjust this level, and we can go up 7, we can go down 7. So if we go to the negative numbers, we're compressing that black range, and if we go into the positive numbers, we're stretching that black range. You can kind of see those colors changing in the background there. Okay, let's set that up. Great, let's go back to OK. Okay, our knee. We've got some curves in our knee that we can go into. We've got manual knee modes where we can set these up to operate the way that we'd like them to. And we can set up our auto settings. This sets our max point between 90 and 100%, so we can swing this up or down to set that the max point there. We'll set this to 95 for this particular range, and then we can set the sensitivity for that max point. We'll set that to high, but as we scroll through, you can kind of slightly see that changing or shifting in the background. So leave that set to high. Go back to OK. And then finally our manual. This allows us to manually set our point. And that we've already done. Now we'll go down to set our slope. And if we go to -5, it sets a very gentle slope or a very gentle curve in that knee point. And if we go to the plus or the positive numbers, it makes it a very sharp slope. So we can determine how we're going to ramp up in that range of the knee there. So we're going to go ahead and make that be real gentle here. Great. Go ahead and choose OK. Next up is our color modes. We've got a variety of color modes that we can choose from here. Again, we can choose cinema color modes, 1, 2, and we've got our 709 matrix or our HD matrix. If you just watch what's happening, for instance, in the yellows and the reds behind the picture there, you can really see those start to pop. We're going to leave this set up to Cinematone 1, so it's not quite as wide. And then we can choose the level, and we can swing that up or swing that down as much as we'd like to. Okay, next up is our color levels. And we can go in and we can assign how saturated or how overall the color levels are set up inside the camera. So we can desaturate entirely, or we can just reduce the overall saturation. Our color phase. This allows us to swing the color to one side or another. And again, this is one of the places where you really want to have a calibrated external monitor. I said it before, I'm going to underscore it again. It's really difficult to set up these color profiles without having some kind of an external monitor so that you can see exactly what's happening with your picture right down to the finest detail. The LCD panel is great, but it really does not give you an overall view of what's happening here. Now when we get to the end of this segment, we're going to show you some of the color profiles side by side, an original shot and the color profile that's set up next to it. But these will have been set up on an external monitor rather than looking through something in just the LCD viewfinder. So let's adjust our color phase. We'll swing that up or we'll shift it down. You can see that the shift in between the blues, the yellows, and the reds there as we slide those up. So we'll set that here. Next is the color depth. Now this is a place where we can really create some customized looks that are even different from anything that anyone else is doing. In other words, it's just a personal setting that you can make to be very creative if that's what you'd like to do. So what we can do here is we can work to saturate individual colors or we can desaturate individual colors. So as we work with the plus side values, in other words, +4, +5 on up the scale, that means we're going to enhance that particular color. If we work to the negative side, that means we're going to reduce the chromatic presentation of that particular color. So for instance, here as we work across the color, let's slide this up. So you can see the color shifting there again, and just even on this small screen here in the backgrounds. You'll notice that these are set up for red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. So we can swing these up in the RGB and the cyan, magenta, and yellow colors. So let's go ahead and punch up our reds. And let's slide down to, for instance, our yellows. Watch what happens with those roses, for instance, as we swing that up. The roses take on a much deeper, richer color, or here we've lightened them up and almost desaturated just that particular color. So this is almost like a selective color, and you'll probably want to set this up on a scene by scene basis, but use it how it best sees, or how it best works for you. So we're going to pop up those yellows just a little bit for this particular shot. Great. We'll get out of this function, slide up to OK. Next, our white balance shift. Let's start with filter types. We've got an LBCC. This is a film type for color correction and conversion. And then we've got a red-blue video type filter. So as we shift that through, you can see what's happening in the picture there. Okay, we're going to leave this set for a cinema type. Next, we're going to get down to our LB color corrector, or our film type, and let's set this up to a plus value, which is going to swing it a little bit to the red. And we'll take it to some negative values, and that's going to shift it down to the blue. So this is where we're going to warm up or cool down that white balance image. Next, we're going to go down to our CC color, so our magenta and our green. Minus values are going to take us more green, while plus values are going to take us into the magenta range. And next we have a red gain and a blue gain level, and we're just going to leave those right where they are. Slide back up to OK. Detail. Hang on. We can swing up the detail coring, or we can swing down the detail coring. You want to be really careful with this. Detailing is a place that you can create some real problems for yourself. Now, when we're dealing with high definition, we know that we can get great detail, and it's common to want to really swing that detail up. But it's a high definition image, and it's already got a lot of detail. By adding more detail to it, what we're going to do is, or what we may likely do, is we might create noise around the contrast points in the picture. So be really cautious about increasing the detailing in your shots. But we do have it here, and there are places where it's applicable, but be careful with it. Make sure that you're checking your picture on an external monitor so that you know exactly what's happening when you start applying detail to your shot. We'll go ahead and apply this here, and actually have removed some of the detail. And then we have a manual setting that we can get into for all of the detail coring right here. So we can go through and play with the vertical balance and the black and white balance with different types of filters. So the VH gives us a control over the vertical and horizontal balance. This is one that you absolutely don't want to be looking at on the LCD monitor. Moving down, we have the black and the white balance. Now what this does is it allows us to work on the detail balances down in the bottom end of the dynamic range, and in the top end of the dynamic range. We've got a number of different filter types here. Okay, a black limit where we can tighten up our black, or the details in the blacks. And then a white limit, the same thing. We can control the amount of detail in the whites. Okay, crispening. In the crispening, we can soften this up a little bit, or shallow detail level, all the way up to very deep crisping level, or crispening levels, all the way at the very, very top. Go ahead and turn that down just a tad. Highlight detail. And this is going to set the detail in the high intensity areas. Again, be careful here, especially if you're shooting things that have got a lot of highlight or high intensity level areas, things that are clear up in the whites. Be sure that you don't set this without that external monitor. Very important. Hopefully by now you've kind of gotten the impression that you need to have an external monitor. It will continue to slide through these menus. Choose OK to get back to our main menu here. And next up is skin tone detail. Now the skin tone detail option allows us an awful lot of latitude in correcting some problems with skin. We're going to use this for getting rid of wrinkles or for maybe softening down any acne scarring or anything on the face that might be a little bit less than perfect. And when it's in HD, every detail is available, and we might want to kind of soften that detail down so it's a little more flattering to our client. So let's dive into what we can do with the skin tone detail. And first of all, we can turn the skin tone detail on or off. So let's flip that to on. You're going to want to take this on a case-by-case basis. So we'll set this up for level, and we can swing the level up and down. And this may be all that you need to do. It's very rare that you're going to be running the skin tone detail very high at all. So let's take this down, and then we can get into our color set. And this is where we're getting to lots of options in the skin tone detail. Now we can swing the phase up and down. You'll notice that the phase control doesn't have a slider like some of the other options do. So we're actually going to be pressing the up or down arrows manually till we get it in here. And the reason for this is because Sony wants to be sure that you've got really fine-tuned control as you're working with this particular parameter, so that you're not sliding all over, because it might just be that fine of a difference that makes things look the way that you want them to look. As we dial through this, the phase control set down between about 0 and 32 is purplish, and then 32 to 64 is kind of a reddish color. 64 to 96 is yellow, and then green up above 96, and then of course 127 takes us up into blue. So this allows us to swing those colors, and you can see that dialing in on that specific color there. Okay, next we'll get into the range. The range selects the color, and it allows us to set a wide range or a narrow band range, just depending on how far we take that in. Basically, it's setting a curve. Okay, next up is saturation, and that just allows us to set the saturation of that particular color range. Then the reverse. Now here we can set the reverse or the inverse of whatever color level that we've got selected. So if you're kind of wondering where that needs to be, you'll look at your color wheel and then look 180 degrees opposite on the color wheel, and that will tell you where you need to be if you want to use the reverse mode. We can turn that on or off. You can see there where we're bringing the yellow flowers in or out in this particular case, because that's the color range that we've got selected. We'll turn that back to off. Next up is our Y level. This allows us to select the color that we're working within. And then we'll slide over to our Y range, and this allows us to control the bandwidth of that color range or that selection. So the higher we go, it expands the range of color. The smaller the value, it reduces the range of color. So now here on the screen you can see something with the skin tone detail set up. And you can see that on one half of the face we've softened it up, and on the other half we've left it to its natural values. Now this is what the skin tone detail can do for you. I'm going to execute here. Go to OK. And OK. Next up in the picture profile menu is the copy button. In the copy button, it allows us to choose a picture profile and copy that, and then paste that over to another location. So we'll shut down the viewfinder here so you can see what we're getting. So we can copy picture profile number 1, and we can tell it that we want it to go to picture profile number 6. And I don't want to copy that over so that I've moved some data, but we'll tell it no in this instance. But we can paste it wherever we'd like to copy it over to, or whichever location we'd like to place it. So let's put that in number 4. And it's going to copy picture profile 1 to picture profile number 4. Next, we can go to Reset, and we'll select the picture profile 1 back to the factory setting. So we've duplicated that, and then we've placed it over onto another setting. Now, one thing about the NXCAM is we're not able to reset all of the picture profiles in one shot. You'll need to go through, and the picture profile will be reset per setting or per preset. So, in other words, you can't take all 6 of them, blow them all away, and then load up 6 more. What you'll need to do is change each one individually as you work through the camera. Okay, we'll get up to the top here. And out of our picture profile modes, and we'll swing those up to off. Now, one thing to be aware of is simply turning on and off the picture profiles button does not turn on and off a picture profile. What it does is it opens up a menu so that you can access a picture profile as opposed to simply enabling or disabling them. So when you open up that picture profile mode, you'll be sure that you want to set it to either 1 through 6 or to the off value mode. So if you find yourself swinging through the main menu or through the camera setup menu and you can't select certain options, be sure to go in and check out picture profiles to make sure that you don't have a picture profile engaged. So let's look at some video of some of the different picture profiles. Let's talk about some of the different menus that are available to us in the Modes menu option. Now we can access the Modes menu by either hitting the Mode button on the side of the camcorder, hitting the Mode button on the top control panel of the camcorder, or hitting the Modes button on the camera's remote. So let's enable the Modes button, and you can see what's available to us here. We can scroll back and forth between the camera, the Play Modes button, the Edit button, and the Dub Copy button, or the Manage Media button. Now this can be navigated by either using the selector wheel on the side of the camcorder, by using the control on the top of the camcorder, or by using the touch screen. So in this particular instance, we're going to go into the edit mode, so I'm just going to touch that with my finger. And you'll see here that it opens up a number of different options. The first option is our Protect, the second is Playlist Edit, Photo Capture, Divide, and Delete. So here's a place where we can move through and control our files. We're going to go ahead and get back out of there. So let's just hit the screen up at the top. You'll see this brings us right back to the menu. Now we can also go back by hitting the Mode button or hitting the back arrow on the control panel. So we've got a number of different ways that we can navigate and move around. Find out what works best for you. If you are going to use the touch panel LCD screen, I recommend that you put a screen protector on the screen. Now, if you do, make sure you use a fairly thin one. The thick ones might take away some of your touch capability or the touch sensitivity. After you apply any protective film on the top of the LCD panel, make sure you run the calibration tool that is available to you in that Others menu that we looked at earlier on in this DVD. All right, so let's go into our play modes here by using the touch panel. We can choose visual index or a playlist. So let's hit the execute button to choose the visual index. Now remember, we can also access the individual video clips through the visual index by hitting the visual index button on the top of the camcorder, or by using one of the assigned buttons that we've assigned the visual index to on the camcorder. So we've got one here on the side, we've got one here on the top. We can get one on the remote, or we can do it through the touch screen. So there's 4 different ways that we can access this particular mode. And you can see a number of videos that I've got here. So we're going to use either the down arrow or the touch screen to select a particular video. Now you'll notice here across the bottom, it gives us information about that video, how long it was, or how long it's been shot for, what time it was shot, the date that it was shot, and the total running shot time that's there. So we can just touch one on the screen, and that'll select that particular video piece. Let's hit the play button, and you'll see that it'll open up in the screen here. If we need to, we can scan forward by hitting the scan slow button on the top of the camcorder. So let's scan through until we find what we're looking for, and there's what we're looking to see. So we'll press the play button to slow that down. Now we can see our image, and we can pause that on an image if we'd like. So now we've paused that on an image, and we can go back to our visual index, or we can go back into our index mode. So let's click on mode, and let's go to edit from here. So we've selected edit, and we're going to hit execute. This lets us do a few things. Let's scroll down to photo capture. And here we can choose to capture a photo or a screen grab of that particular shot, and that'll be stored off on the card in a DCIM folder. In other words, it's a still image that we've now been able to extract from the camcorder. Most NLEs can do this screen capture, and this is no better than using the screen capture that you're going to use in your NLE system, but it is a way that we can capture still images. Okay, so let's go back out of that particular mode. So we can hit the up arrow to take us to the back button. Okay, we've got our back button. We can also delete this clip if we want to. And we can split this clip into two pieces if that's what we want to do. So this is a way that we can do some in-camera editing. If you find yourself running out of storage time and you've got a bunch of lead in or lead out, or maybe some recording of somebody walking across the floor from their foot shot, and we want to get rid of it, just simply move through the clip until you find a divide point, split it, and delete the previous clip. It's that simple. Go into our mode. Let's go into edit mode. Slide over to divide. And we're going to divide our AHD, just like that. Now we choose which scene it is that we want to split. And create our new split point. So now we can go through and delete the previous clip. Let's go back to our modes menu. And let's go down to dub copy. Okay. Now we can dub a movie or do a movie dub. Let's click, hit our execute button, and we can either dub everything over or we can just dub selected clips. Okay, now where is it that we want to dub from? And this menu gives us the opportunity to dub from card A to card B, or card A over to an external drive, or external drive over to a card. So we've got a lot of options here that allow us to dub from movie to movie. So this is a really great way to be able to share movies, or be able to offload it daily, or be able to work with different clips in different locations. Okay, and let's escape back out of there. And if we want to dub everything, we're going to dub everything, but it's going to dub everything in this case from hard drive A or card A over to an external drive, or we're going to dub from card B over to an external drive, depending on what we've got selected there. Okay, let's move back up. And we can get into our photocopies as well. So if we copy by select, or we can copy all of our photos. Now, we only have the one photo that we've set up on here, so there's no pictures to copy over, but this is where we're going to go when we want to copy some pictures over. So we can select certain individual shots. There's no media shots that we've got available to us there, but you can see how that comes into play. Let's go to our second page of videos. There we go. Now, anytime we're in this play index mode, we can use our finger, or we can use the control key to move us around, or we can use the remote control as we're going through these different clips and determining what it is we do and don't want to keep. We have one more mode button that we want to get into here, and this is the Manage Media button. Here's where we're going to format our media. We're going to repair a database file, or we're going to connect a USB cable to the camcorder to use the camcorder as an interface between the camera and our NLE system, or to our hard drive. Now, one thing to tell you about working with file-based systems: whenever possible to clear card, we want to format the card as opposed to simply deleting files. If you've gotten rid of everything on the camera, you've got a copy of everything, rather than going through and deleting things piece by piece, or even doing a delete all, it's really best if you format the card. Why? Because every time you delete, you leave back, or you leave behind, indexing information from previous pieces that were on there. And eventually, it just fills up like so much detritus. And we just want to get rid of everything and blow it all away so that we're dealing with fresh, new media. Kind of think of it as not reusing old tape. So we're going to put in a fresh new card by formatting that card, or reformatting that card each time we work with it. You'll have a much better experience if you format your card as opposed to deleting. It might take some time if you've just been deleting information off the card, but at some point in time, the card database file is going to become corrupt if you don't use the format method. And that's why we have this option on here where we can record, or we can repair a database. And this allows us to determine if we're going to be dealing with the external, card A or card B, as you can see in the menu options that are right here. Okay, so let's step back from there. And that gets us through all the different modes that we've got in the camcorder for the 5 different play modes. We'll get back into camera mode, then it gives us the movie mode. Now in the movie mode, there's one other feature that we have here called Smooth Slow Record. So when we select Smooth Slow Record, it gives us some options. First of all, are we going to record this in HD or SD? Are we going to record it to a card, or are we going to record it to an external hard drive? So it gives us a couple of options here. Now, some things to tell you about smooth slow record is smooth slow record effectively slows things down by a factor of about 4. We lose image quality. And the longer you use the smooth slow record function, the lower the quality is going to be. So it used to be in some of the older cameras that we had 3 seconds, 6 seconds, and 12 seconds. This doesn't work quite the same way. We've got a little bit more flexibility, but understand that smooth slow record does degrade the image quality. So we're going to go ahead and choose that we want to record this to HD. Then it gives us the option of how long it's going to function. So let's set this up to 12 seconds. And as soon as we hit the record button, you'll see there in the window where it's saying buffering. That's letting us know that it's doing its record. And as soon as it reaches the end of its record cycle, it'll shut off. And now it's recording that image to the card. And you can see our smooth slow record happening there in the screen. So where would you use smooth slow record? Well, Sony's owner's manual says you'd use it for things like golf swings and other high-speed events, and that's true. You absolutely can use it for that. Just be aware that you're going to have some degraded quality. So I've seen guys use this for recording insects, and I've seen some skydivers use it to record parachute openings to slow things down just a little bit. So it does have some value and some benefits depending on the type of workflow or the type of subject that you need to shoot. But be aware that the image quality does get degraded when you're working with a smooth slow record function. Let's go ahead and get back out of our modes button here. Now we're back to a normal record mode and we're out of that smooth slow record setup. One of the really cool things about dealing with file-based camcorders is the fact that we can create playlists in camera. So what that means is we can shoot a bunch of scenes, go through and select individual takes to see how those are going to cut together for the best picture. That also gives us an idea of which pieces we want to keep if we're running short on media. So here's how we create a playlist and play back a playlist in the camcorder. First, we go into the Modes button, click Mode, and in Edit, we click Edit, and then we're going to click on Playlist Edit. We're going to add a playlist, so click on Add. Next thing we're going to choose is the media that we want to record to and the quality of media that we want to create as a playlist. Click OK. And this opens up a visual index here. Now we can go through and by using the joystick or by using the round options, we can select individual clips like so, or we can use our finger, and this is really, again, kind of one of the easier ways to do this particular thing. Now, if you're using your finger, all you need to do is hold your finger down on a clip, and that will cause it to play back so that you can preview it. That way you'll know exactly which clip you're looking at. So let's set up our next clip. Okay, we've got that one selected, so now we've got 2 selected. We'll select that particular clip, and let's select that clip. So now we can see that we've got 4 different clips in our playlist or in our visual index that have been selected for our playlist. If you look down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the OK button. And that asks us if we want to add all of those to the playlist. So let's just select the Yes button. And it's adding those to a playlist. So now we've got a playlist set up. Let's choose OK. Let's go back to our Modes button. Hit play. Slide this over to play. Or use the touch screen. Okay, we can play the visual index or we can go to our playlists. So let's choose the playlist that we want, and it's going to be our Card A HD mode. And there's the scenes that we selected for the playlist right there. So let's just go to the first one. And now our scenes begin to play. And so our playlist will play through. Now we haven't made a copy of anything. All we're doing is referencing the original media with that playlist. So it's very easy to set this up so that each scene will cut from scene to scene. We'll have an idea of what our storyline is going to look like and how individual scenes will cut together. Just a great way overall to work. What if we want to move a clip in a playlist? It might be that it's not in the right order for what we're trying to achieve. This is how you do it. Let's go to the Modes button. And we're still in the edit mode here because it was the last mode that we were in. Let's choose edit. We're going to playlist edit. And now we're going to scroll over till we hit move. And we want it to be HD quality using the A card, just like we did before. It's going to open up that playlist. Now there's a couple ways we can do this. Again, we can do this using the controls on the camera or the remote, but it's easiest if you use your finger on the LCD screen. So we're going to touch this second to the last clip. That's the one we want to move. Let's tap on OK. Now we've got these two arrows right here. We're going to move it to where we want it to be. We want to sit right there between the third and fourth clips. Choose OK. And it's asking us if we want to move it. Choose yes. It's now executing that move. And so now our playlist has been changed. So if we go back to our playlist and look at our playlist edit, this allows us to move those files around or just look at the files. And again, we're in that same place, but let's go back to our play mode. And when we're in our play mode, let's look at our playlist. Here's our playlist with everything moved, and we can just begin playback by double tapping or pressing the play button on that first file. And now that has been moved within our playlist, and so we can rearrange our scenes or just kind of shuffle those blocks around at will. So again, playlists are a really great way to work, especially when you're out in the field and you want to get a rough idea of what's going on. Thanks for spending this time with me. By now, you should be thoroughly familiar with all the buttons and switches and menu settings in your camcorder. Now, go out and shoot, have a blast, and make it work for you. Until next time, learn it fast with VAST.